We talk a lot on this show about freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Those are a couple of the biggies listed in the fundamental freedom section of our Constitution. It's my observation that Christians are slowly being driven out of the public square in Canada. Take, for example, the attempt to ban graduates from Trinity Western University from practicing law in Canada simply because those students voluntarily take a personal conduct pledge to live according to Christian principles. These students will be fine lawyers, but because they chose to live by certain Christian values in school, not to use booze or drugs, not to have sex outside of a traditional marriage, anti-Christian extremists in various law societies are trying to ban them. Well, of course, they would never ban, say, Muslim lawyers who held those same beliefs, but Christians are fair game. It's illegal and it's gross. Take the example of Arthur Pawlowski of the Street Church in Calgary. For more than 5 years, he has been bullied by that city, including literally more than 100 court appearances, countless tickets and lawsuits, all because he takes a Christian social services approach to the city's poorest people. Arthur likes to give out sleeping bags to the homeless or cook food for them. The city so hates him, they do bizarre things like ticketing him for feeding the hungry on the streets without a restaurant license. I'm not making that up. They literally charged Arthur with illegally singing Christmas carols in City Hall on Christmas. I am not making this up. Well, the phrase driving Christians out of the public square is usually a metaphor, except earlier this month when one Christian man was literally in a public square in the middle of a Canadian city and police came to drive him out. If you've ever been to Toronto's Yonge and Dundas Square, you know it's like Canada's version of Times Square. It's noisy, it's crowded, it's full of people doing things on the street, busking, breakdancing, selling hot dogs, handing out product samples, even evangelizing for different religions. It's noisy, it's boisterous, it's like a carnival. But in that whole mix of people and activities, why do Toronto police keep hassling one man, a Christian pastor named David Lynn? Here, take what happened earlier this month on Labor Day when dozens of different street acts were hamming it up in Yonge and Dundas Square. Watch what the police did to Reverend Lynn because he had the temerity to sing a Christian song with a microphone. Watch how polite Reverend Lynn is, simply asking to see the law he's being charged under, and how the cop says if he dares to ask that question, the cop's going to seize his amplifier as a punishment. It's all on tape, recorded by a supporter of Reverend Lynn. Look.
Because we have a drummer and everything that comes out all the time at break dances and they're set up.
Yeah,
it's
but
all amplified.
you can't, no, the drum is fine because it's not amplified, right?
That's a drum.
Yeah, well that's a drum. If you can unplug it and play it, that's fine. If you can sing without the mic, that's fine, but you can't have the amplifier.
Can you show me the Bible?
Sure I can, but I can also write you the 104. Do you want that? And I'm going to seize your hand. Is that the way you want to go right now?
Can you show me the bylaw?
Is that the way you want to go right now?
Can you show me the bylaw though?
Okay, start by unplugging the amp.
You just, if all you have to do is just unplug it.
Yeah, no, I just want to see the bylaw.
We don't make stuff up.
Sir, we don't carry a copy of every single rule around with us.
Like how could you do something and you don't even...
I have the bylaw.
I don't have to show you it in writing.
I'm the minister of the
That's the way you want to go, right?
Well, then you can plead your case before Justice of the Peace.
Stay with the thing. I'm going to go get my bike.
Okay.
Sure I can, but I can also write you the 104. Do you want that? And I'm going to seize your hand. Is that the way you want to go right now?
Can you show me the bylaw?
Is that the way you want to go right now?
Can you show me the bylaw though?
So the cops say, listen to me and turn off your sound. And if not, if you dare even ask for the section of the law I claim you're violating, I'm going to take your property. You saw it all on tape. This was the tape of one of Reverend's supporters. Oh, by the way, here's what the cops were fine with. Take a look. Now, I'm fine with a guy doing breakdancing on Yonge and Dundas Square with a stereo that's amplified on a big mat on the sidewalk. It's like our Times Square. That's fun. And obviously the cops are fine with it too. Just a few feet over from Reverend Lynn was the permanent Muslim evangelism booth too. They're not much into music over there, more just handing out books about how to beat your wife. We've shown you some of those books, those pro-wife beating books they hand out at Yonge and Dundas Square on the show. The cops would never shut those guys down. I mean, multiculturalism, right? But a Christian pastor singing a song will throw 4 cops at him. And if he asks a polite question, we'll seize his stuff. I mean, what's he going to do? Fight back? He's obviously poor. What's he going to do? Hire a lawyer? Charge him under the busking bylaws. Yeah, that's the ticket. As if he were out there trying to make a few bucks by singing, as opposed to preaching the gospel. What do you think? Do you think it's fair that every other busker, hawker, huckster, dancer, and singer can strut their stuff on Yonge and Dundas Square except a Christian pastor? I believe Reverend Lynn was singled out because of who he is and because he dared to challenge the police. You can see that right in the video. Because he didn't submit immediately, they threw the book at him. That's what they said they were doing. But that's not fair, and that's not legal. Reverend Lynn has the constitutional right to preach his religion, and passers-by have the constitutional right to hear him too. If breakdancers have the right to have a boombox on the street, surely Reverend Lynn can use a microphone without being ticketed and having his equipment seized. Now, police say the breakdancer had a permit. But since when does a pastor need a government permit? Well, this made me mad. 4 cops picking on a guy, and when he very politely, you saw him, when he politely asked what he was being ticketed for, they said, "Don't you dare question us, or I'll respond by taking your property." You heard it. So you see, the real offense wasn't breaking some law. It was daring to question the officer. You saw it on tape. Well, what do you think? Do you think Reverend Lynn was being picked on because he's a Christian? On Friday, I went by Yonge and Dundas Square to see for myself and to talk to Reverend Lynn. After the break, I'll show you our conversation and what we decided to do about the charges against him. More Source still ahead. Welcome back. I'm Ezra Levant. We're talking about freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right of Christians to be in the public square, literally the square. So I went down to Yonge and Dundas Square on Friday afternoon. Not the busiest time of the week there, but lots of people there nonetheless. I observed Reverend Lynn in action for almost an hour. Most people just walked by. Some stopped for a moment or waved at him. But 10 people were standing around at any given moment, stopping to listen to what he said or to sing along. Not a single person in the hour I was there made any objection. What was there to object to? If you didn't like him, keep walking another 10 feet and you'd find someone or something else to listen to. He wasn't rude or offensive or hateful in any possible way. In fact, I have to tell you, I found myself impressed with his humble and hopeful style. Call me a fan. But police down there don't seem to like him much. Police tolerate a lot in Yonge and Dundas Square. I mean, look, this is a city with the full frontal nudity pride parade, but they don't seem to like this Christian pastor. I wonder why. Well, I asked the Reverend himself. Pastor, pleasure to meet you. This is sort of your church right on the street, isn't it?
Yes, yes. We share the gospel on the streets. Christ commanded us to do that according to Matthew 28:18, to go into the world, make disciples, and our faith is public, and it's very hard for us to practice our faith without a public presence. And from my take, our charter gives us the rights to share our faith publicly, and no one should feel discriminated against. And
I've been watching it for about half an hour. Some people stop and listen. Some people stop for a moment, pass by. Some people smile. Some people wave. Some people interact. I have not seen, in the hundreds who have passed by, a single person object to what you're doing. Is there anyone who's mad at you? Or is there anyone who's trying to stop you?
You know what? The majority of the people, I'd say 99% of the people, either enjoy it or walk on by or just take it as a part of, downtown life. We get the odd heckler now and then that, anybody gets, even the break dancers or anything.
Yeah. But that's probably just stimulates more debate.
Yeah, and it does. And in fact, it draws a bigger crowd, and a lot of people are interested. And if you look at some of my videos, people really like seeing religion on the streets. They're learning, they're engaging, and,
Well, there's other religion. I see right over there is one of the Islamic stations. I've seen them have a lot more booths than just that before. There's a variety of people making different levels of noise, like you say, breakdancing. There's concerts sometimes. There's just people selling stuff. I think you fit into a boisterous downtown. Why do you think the police chose you, of all the sources of noise, to give a ticket to and then just take your stuff?
Well, I think it's because we're preaching and we're sharing about God, and you know, out of all days, it was Labor Day. I think it's just a personal thing because, to be honest, I mean, we've been out here for 4 years. It's the first time I've ever gotten a ticket. And, I mean, but now and then police come by and try to ticket, or try to, not ticket, but try to get us to stop. But it seems more of a personal thing. And, you know, that's the only
they've been
thing.
watching you? They've been coming around your way and telling you to stop it for 4 years?
Yeah, but very, very, I mean, over a little while, I mean, it seems like they've kind of gotten used to us, but it seems like anytime there's a police officer that has like a personal beef or just doesn't like what we do, or they just come and pick on us. And, you know,
I saw when they came and you spoke back firmly but politely, and it was almost like they said, oh, if you dare defy us, we're going to throw the book at you. Is that your feeling too?
Say that
Well,
again.
when they, like, I saw the video of when they said stop and you disputed it a bit, and they seem to sort of say, if you don't submit, we're going to throw the book at you legally.
Yeah.
Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I felt, I mean, bullied, discriminated. I mean, I'm an ordained minister, very disrespected. I mean, you know, I feel like I shouldn't have to walk on eggshells to be a Christian or to share my faith. And yeah, I mean, they pushed me in a corner, and I don't think that was right at all.
You know, they were coming at you, if I'm not mistaken, with the busking law. I mean, you were using an amplifier to say your words and to sing the odd Christian song. I think trying to put you in a busking pigeonhole misunderstands the freedom that we give to religious discourse. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm not a busker. I'm sharing my faith, and everybody shares their opinion and their belief and their philosophy every day, and I don't see any difference with a religious person doing it. And I mean, tons of things are amplified all the time. The drums, I mean, we got a drummer here since 1994, drumming very, very loud, breakdancers, creating a big, almost you can't even walk on the sidewalk, and nobody stops them.
That's Toronto. I mean, that's downtown Toronto. Now, when I saw this, one of our viewers brought this to my attention, and I thought, I bet that guy doesn't have a lawyer, because no one has a lawyer. I mean, lawyers cost a lot of dough, but we managed to find a young civil liberties lawyer. She's not, I mean, she's young, but she's got experience. I think she's been at the law 7 or 8 years, and we managed to connect her to you. Sonia Schickman, do you feel like she could fight for you in court and give you a chance in that court of law?
I hope so. It looks, I mean, I spoke with her, and she says that, I mean, from talking to her, it seems like we have a really good case, and you know, it's coming out very clearly a violation of my rights, and I mean, I personally feel it's discriminate, religious profiling. That's how I would call it, and she thinks we have a really good case, and
I'm glad. I mean, I feel like you have a good case, but that's the thing, is a lot of people who have a good case, if they don't have a lawyer to make it in the right way, if they don't have the right case law, make the right arguments, will you accept from Sun viewers a donation? I've talked to your lawyer already. Will you accept, if our Sun viewers, I'll chip in the first $100. If we fund the lawyer, you'll be her client and she'll be your lawyer, so we won't have a legal standing, but we'll just help raise the dough to get you at least to that October 16th hearing and maybe beyond?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, I definitely need the help. I think that this case is a case that will eventually affect every Christian in a wide variety of venues, and I think there needs to be a precedent set for people like me that are on the streets or even in schools or anywhere, that, you know, we should have the right to stand up, be ourselves without feeling marginalized and discriminated against, you know?
Well, you know what? This is the first time we met today, and it's the first time I've seen you here. I know you've been here for 4 years. I think you're an important part of what some folks like to call diversity. You cannot have a diverse group of people if Christians are shut out of literally the town square. I think it's important that you have the right to be here. And the fact that you use an amplifier in this extremely noisy downtown, I don't find that something that should be banned. I think you've been picked on, and I want our Sun viewers to help you. And I'm glad that you've come across very thoughtful, and that you know your rights and you want to peacefully assert them. And I'd have to tell you, it's a pleasure and an honor to work with you, and I wish you good luck. And I think I can speak for all Sun viewers. We want you to fight and prevail, and we want you on the street whenever you want to be. And I wish you good luck, sir.
Thank you so much, Ezra, and I really appreciate everybody's support. And you know, again, I mean, this is something that's affecting a lot of people, and I really hope that we'll win this case and we'll be able to share our faith without feeling like we're doing something wrong, you know.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much.
More Source still ahead. So what do you think? Do you think he's a troublemaker, this Reverend Lynn? A little bit philosophically. He's trying to get the whole world to become Christian, peacefully, gently, with some preaching and song, on a street corner, near a dozen other street activist, salesmen, buskers, preachers from other religions. Except unlike the Muslim booth a few feet away, Reverend Lynn is not preaching beating your wife, as that Muslim booth does, as we've shown you before. So earlier this month, when the cops came, I think there were 4 of them, they demanded he unplug his microphone. And for his insolence of asking them why, under what law, they seized his property and wrote him a ticket. That's bullying. But hey, a poor black man, what's he going to do, right? I mean, try hiring a lawyer in this town. You and what, $5,000, right? He had no chance, and the cops knew it. Well, what do you do? What do you think? Do you think we should help him out? Do you think we should help be the equalizer here? Hire him as civil liberties lawyer, even the odds a bit? We asked an experienced criminal lawyer with a love for civil liberties to help and offered to pay her bill. Sonia Schickman has agreed to take on the file, and she's already well into planning the legal defense and requesting disclosure of the case from the prosecutors. Sonia has agreed to take the case for $5,000 that we hope to raise from concerned Canadians, so that Reverend Lynn won't have to pay the bills himself. Sonia comes from to her love for free speech honestly. She was born in a dictatorship that didn't have freedom. Here's my interview with her on Friday. Sonia, thanks very much for meeting me here downtown. What attracts you to the case? Is there something here that lights a fire in you for liberty?
Well, absolutely, Ezra. This was a very bizarre situation generally that they approached him and charged him, but moreover, the way they did it, when if you've seen the video, of course, looking at the fact that David is asking them to explain, listen, which bylaw am I violating? And the minute you see that instant, the officer saying, okay, you want to go that way? I'm going to seize it now. It's almost a threat. If you're going to keep on challenging my authority, if you're going to keep on asking me questions, I'm not only going to give you a ticket, I'm going to seize your equipment. That is completely inappropriate in our society.
Now, what strikes me, I mean, here we are in Dundas Square. It's sort of Canada's version of Times Square. You've got a bit of everything here. You've got hot dog carts, that's my favorite. You've got people selling stuff. You've got the Muslim dawah, where they preach conversion to Islam. You've got buskers. You often have other amplified sounds of all these different street theater versions of different religions and different commerce. It seems to me that they went after this one guy, and it just struck me as odd that he was the guy they went after.
It was somewhat bizarre, and I am quite surprised, but something tells me there's a bit of a history, and of course you're familiar with what happened a few years back at the Gay Pride Parade, so I wouldn't be surprised if they looked for David personally. Talking about other people getting amplifiers, etc., you can get a one-time permit for an amplifier, but surely how can David preach on a daily basis a peaceful religious proposition and then obtain a daily permit? It's just nonsensical. It's just not something that he can do.
Now, I want to ask you about the case itself, because I think, I mean, David has various talents, but he's not a lawyer, and you saw how many police they put on him at the arrest, and obviously they want to make an example out of him. That's sort of what it sounded like. Oh, you want to fight with us? We'll throw the book at you. We reached out to David, and he didn't have a lawyer, so we were looking for a lawyer who had a bit of a love for civil liberties. Now, I detect a Russian accent. That tells me you come from a place where civil liberties earlier in your life were not as valued as they are here in Canada. This isn't just business for you. This is about freedom, am I right?
Absolutely, Ezra. I think you put it exactly right. I actually was born and raised in Soviet Union, and anybody who was born and raised in that place knows very well that civil liberties were not a concept that anybody was very familiar with. So absolutely, this is a case that's very important to me from a perspective of really looking at one person who's really doing nothing but but preaching a very peaceful religion. It would be very different if he was calling for violence against somebody else, etc. That would be very different, but this is exactly what we have the protections for: the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion. That's what those sections are for.
We talk about those sections of the Constitution, the fundamental freedoms, a lot on our show. Freedom of religion and conscience is the very first one. Freedom of speech and expression and media is the very second one. Freedom of association, freedom of assembly. Almost all of those core fundamental freedoms are engaged by this guy here. I mean, it's like he's right at the nexus of all of them. I don't want you to give away your legal strategy on TV. And he is your client and you are his lawyer. We just sort of made the match. But do you feel comfortable sharing with our viewers something about your strategy? Will you invoke those fundamental freedoms? Will you say it's inappropriate to go after him with a busking law since it was really a religious act? Don't give me all the secrets, but can you give me a rough outline for our viewers of how you intend to fight this?
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you first off that the Crown bears the onus, the prosecution, of proving the case against him. So if they charge them under a particular section, they will first have to demonstrate that he actually fits in the criteria and that they can prove that. I will leave that at that. There's a second way of challenging the charges against him, and that is by bringing an application that it was challenging the constitutionality, that it violates his right to freedom of religion and freedom of speech. Interestingly enough, from the perspective of the amplifier, freedom of speech is not only his freedom to speak, it also includes your freedom to hear. So from that perspective, we're talking about the fact that he needs an amplifier when you've got break dancers, and he needs an amplifier at all times because he needs to be heard, and it is your right as a citizen to be able to hear him, and it's his right to be able to be heard. And that's something that we'll definitely be discussing in court if that comes up.
That's great. Now, you've connected with him and you've seen the documents he has. You've requested disclosure from the Crown. If I'm not mistaken, the first hearing is scheduled for October 16th. Is that still on?
That is correct, and I'm hoping to receive some disclosure at that point in time.
Look, I saw this on video. A viewer sent it to me. I've actually never met the pastor before today. I like his style. I mean, this is a lively place, and frankly, if you're allowed to preach the Quran, you should be allowed to preach the Christian Bible. That's my view. I'm not even Christian, I'm Jewish. But what bothered me is what looked like a guy being picked on. Like you say, it was a bunch of cops who sort of said, well, if you're not going to go quietly, we'll throw the book at you. That just felt wrong to me, and here's what I thought, and here's why we reach out to you. I think he needs legal help. I think he needs your help, and I know you have to earn a living. You don't work for free. It's not a hobby for you. You're not independently wealthy. What I thought I would do, and we've done this before for similar problems, I'd love to chip in the first $100 to your legal bills. And I believe, after our discussion and my discussion with the pastor, if I ask my viewers, I believe that we can raise $5,000. We've done it before. If we give you $5,000, and I promise we'll raise it, even if I have to chip in more myself, is that enough for you to take his case at least October 16th?
That's definitely something we will do. We at Adler Bertensky Preacher Schickman have discussed it at length, and it's something that is important to all of us, not just to me personally. And absolutely, that is something that will make work.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed talking with you. I think this is an important civil liberties case. I'm glad you're part of the team. I hope you'll come back on the show and give us an update, either on the 16th or shortly after. And if you need more dough, let us know. I'm glad this is enough to get you fighting. Pleasure to meet you. Thanks for joining the fight.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care.
My pleasure. Well, what do you think? Sonia Schickman has agreed to take the case for $5,000. I promised I'd kick in the first $100 and that I'd ask you, our viewers, for the rest. If Sonia needs more, she'll come back and tell us. If she doesn't need all of it, I asked her to put it towards other civil liberties cases. Will you help me? Please visit the website I've set up for this project called streetfreedom.ca. You can do two things there. You can chip into the Legal Defense Fund for Reverend Lynn, and you can sign our petition too. Let me read the wording of it to you. We, the undersigned, demand that the City of Toronto drop the charges against Reverend David Lynn for preaching in Yonge and Dundas Square and give Christians just as much freedom of expression in Toronto as anyone else. Reverend Lynn isn't a big shot. He doesn't have a big church and a big congregation. This isn't like an entire Christian university being blacklisted. If it weren't for that cell phone video of the whole thing, I would never have heard of this. But I did hear about it, and now you have too. And I want to do something about it, not just for him, but to set a precedent, to have a teachable moment for the city of Toronto and those cops who charged him. Let's help this guy and make Canada a freer place. More Source still ahead.